the smoother, the better. That is true for chocolate, pebbles, paint, and I'd also say it's true for running. Now, no surprises here, we are focusing on the latter. I have got 6 tips to help you run smoother and more efficiently with no more effort. If you look at the pros running, they look effortless. It's as though they're just gliding and floating over the ground. Yet, when they are working hard, they're working just as hard as you or I. Somehow though, it's just kinda on the eye, and this is down to technique. Now, it could all sound a little bit superficial because today we're focusing on how you look when you run. And yes, it would be if there wasn't a direct correlation between running smoothness and running efficiency. So the following 6 tips that we've got today are going to address both of those aspects. If you have the opportunity to watch elite long distance runners either on TV or online, and you get to see a side profile shot, then try and pause it and just take a note of the lines. If you drew an imaginary line down through their head, their shoulders, their hips and through to the midpoint of their foot, you would notice that it's straight, but you'd also notice that there's a very subtle forward lean with that. Now, elite runners will use this very subtle forward momentum when they are running well, and it's not to be confused though with a forward bend. So if you are trying to replicate this, you need to remember it's the whole body, because it's easy to think with your head and shoulders are in front of your hips, you've got that forward lean nailed. If you are folding at the hips though, you haven't, and it's actually going to be detrimental to your running. So it needs to be a full body lean. You can start to get the idea for this by simply standing, leaning forwards until you need to actually break it with the steps. So you're doing a full body lean, you just get that idea of where your kind of breaking point is. And then next, do it again, but this time fall into a run and try and run and keep that forward lean as you move into it. Now, admittedly, this is much easier if you're running faster, so it could be a good idea to try and do it with some strides and use that momentum and the speed to help. Now, if you are going out for really steady, easy jogs, you're naturally going to be more upright, which is totally fine. So you don't need to be trying to lean on those slower runs. You just need to be able to try to work out the difference and how that feels. The less time that your foot spends on the ground, the more efficient you're going to be as a runner. See that time when the foot lands as dead time, and by reducing it, which is known as your ground contact time, you're going to be able to become more efficient and smoother, and you will find that increasing your cadence is going to be linked to that and will as a result help. So if you have a running cadence of around 170 strides per minute or less, then actually working on increasing it will help overall. So you can do certain things like running on the spot with really fast feet, just getting them used to moving quicker. You can run upstairs like small steps fast, get a ladder, do some fast steps over that, or even do some sprints at the start of your longer run, and so it'll just naturally get you to feel that your feet can move quicker. Alternatively, you might find that running with music of a certain beat will help to really ingrain that increased cadence. In order to make sure your running movement is smooth, you want every body part to be moving in the correct direction and the right amount, and this includes your arms. Now, yes, there are going to be outliers, but ideally you want your arms to be moving forwards and backwards with hardly any lateral movement, and naturally in time with your opposite hip and knee. And then your arms themselves need to be just staying relaxed, but also nice and close to the body. And there's other elements you need to consider. Your shoulders, make sure they're not creeping up towards your ears, because this will have an overall effect on your running gait. And even your hands, these need to stay relaxed. And some people find that holding something light will just help to remind them to keep it nice and fluid. The position of your feet as they swing through and land on the ground is going to be very much controlled by what's going on further up your body. If your feet are dramatically turning in or out, it's going to be putting quite a lot of strain on your body, especially your knees, and most likely resulting in your running not being particularly smooth. So if you know this is something that you have a problem with, you need to look at really working on strengthening and mobility work for your hips and for your knees. And the most significant aspect of foot strike is where in relation to your body is your foot actually landing on the ground. If it's way out in front of you, then naturally you're going to be having a heel strike. But most importantly, it's actually going to be working in a form of a break and ruining that momentum, as well as affecting the smoothness of your running gait. So ideally, you want your foot to be landing nice and underneath your body, which goes hand in hand with that forward lean. Because if you've got that natural lean, you're naturally going to find that your foot will be landing underneath you. And obviously when you're running more slowly, then you're naturally going to have a heel strike and you're being more upright. But when you are running in a more of a tempo effort or in a more of a race-based scenario, hopefully that foot will start to land in a far more efficient and smoother position. Have you ever noticed a post-race photo that's been taken front on and you look a little wonky? You might notice if you dial in closer that your hip that you're not standing on is actually dropped lower than the stabilizing leg. Well, this is quite common when fatigue sets in towards the end of a race. It's not common, however, for the pros, and this is due to the fact that they've got that much more control and stabilization around their hips and their torso. Therefore, in order to run smoothly and efficiently, you want to minimize any movement that isn't helping you to run forwards. So you want to look at strengthening that core area and your hips to allow your legs to do the most efficient job without getting in the way of them. So you want to think of adding in some core exercises, some glute strengthening exercises, and anything that's going to help with this middle section being more stable. On top of that physical work, you can also mentally think of trying to run nice and tall with your shoulders back, keeping your hips facing forward and driving through and up on each stride. And this last point ties in nicely with all of the other areas. As you know, any movement in one part of the body is going to affect a part elsewhere. So you want to have a nice fixed eye position that's up ahead, which is going to have an overall positive impact on your body position. It'll encourage the forward lean, it's going to help with your hips driving through and forwards, and as a result that will have a positive impact on where your foot lands underneath you. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, your head is a very heavy part of your body. So any excessive movement there or holding it in a certain direction is going to put another part of your body into more of a strain or make it work harder and affect your running smoothness. So a little bit like your upper body, you want your head to stay relaxed, but you want to reduce any excessive movement. Now, I expect you have managed to pinpoint one or two areas that you need to focus on out of these 6, and you will find that by just addressing even one of them, it'll have a positive effect on the rest, and you'll be floating along and running smoothly in no time. So hopefully you've enjoyed it and it's got you some ideas of how you can run more smoothly. Give us a like if so, and remember, find that globe and hit subscribe.